I need to point out that the water vapor that was vaporized by Hunga Tonga is still in the atmosphere. Even now in 2025, even though it erupted almost 4 years ago, it's still up there. If this eruption had not been water vapor, if this had been, say, a terrestrial volcano pumping a bunch of soot and dirt and debris up into the stratosphere, we would have seen significant global cooling, possibly catastrophic depending on how big the eruption was. A lot of the global warming that you're going to hear, at least today in 2025, a lot of the narrative around global warming.
Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta ask. Are we saying we had a climate crisis?
I think we narrowly averted a climate crisis because of this. If this had been a terrestrial volcano, we would most certainly be in a climate crisis right now. We were this close to all life on Earth being extinguished because we didn't have enough CO2. Humans have reversed that. Yeah. I philosophically believe that it is our purpose on this planet to put the CO2 back into the atmosphere. Now, it appears to me like I have your attention. I hope you at home, you're also interested, because this is the moment of the podcast where things are going to get interesting.
It still hits, I don't miss it. It's go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost done, and I told you so. When I throw these flows, like it's Rochambeau. And I ain't too close, it's Joe Smoke goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Anthracite Pallet Solutions. Need reliable, durable pallets to keep your business moving? At Anthracite Pallet Solutions, we specialize in new and used 48x40 wooden pallets. Whether you're shipping, storing, or stacking, we offer high-quality pallets that keep your operations running smoothly. With our own fleet of trucks and trailers, we deliver on time, every time. And if warehouse space is a concern, our drop trailer services have you covered. From custom orders to large-scale deliveries, we're here to meet your every need with top-notch customer service and unbeatable prices. We're currently shipping within 2 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, including Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. Call us today at 570-606-9206 or inquire online at anthracitepallet.com and let us handle your pallet solutions. Anthracite Pallet Solutions, built to last, designed to move. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All OnTheStacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an OnTheStacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game. Mark Margavage, welcome back to the OnTheStacks podcast.
Thanks for having me, Bill. It's been about 2 years.
I can't believe it's been that long, by the way. And yeah, I mean, I don't know why I didn't have you back sooner. And you came back. I mean, I had, actually, it reminds me, I probably should turn the air conditioning off. And that's why, I felt like you had to run back out and grab your scarf because I froze you out in here.
No, actually, I wore this scarf because I went to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania this year, back on Groundhog Day, and I got this scarf along with a forecast from Punxsutawney Phil. Here's the
Look
back
at
of
this.
the scarf. It's got the little groundhog on
Look at
there.
this thing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's warm, too. It was extremely cold that day.
Yeah, how cold was it?
It was, I think it was about 12 degrees when the groundhog was
Not bad. Yeah.
making his way out of his hole there.
Yeah, little chilly, and we got you here. Look
That's
at you.
right.
Look at you.
It was,
Yeah.
it was fun. Veronica took me down there, convinced me to go. This is my first time I've ever been there, actually. You know, you might
Have you like been wanting to go?
I always wanted to go, but as a meteorologist, I never really get myself to go because it was like, oh, why should I support this rodent who's competing with my winter forecast? But hey, I gotta give him credit this year. Phil got it right. Today's April 8th, and I have this scarf mainly because it's in the 30s out there for a high temperature today on April 8th.
It was a little chilly out.
Very, very. As a matter of fact, it's snowing in parts of New York and Vermont. A lot of my followers who will be watching this are probably bundled up a lot more than just a scarf today. So it's been a rather cold start to April, but March ended very warm. So
It did.
I'm actually concerned for the local pear trees tonight.
Yeah.
Because we had that surge of warmth in late March. A lot of them, if you look outside, they're already budding. And from years past, when we get a cold snap after they've already budded, that typically means you're not going to get very productive fruit off of those trees. It's going to be pretty cold tonight with temperatures getting down into the low 20s and maybe even the teens in some of the outlying areas. So I am concerned for the fruit trees in the area tonight.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned Veronica before, and since you've been on last, you also got engaged. Congrats.
Yes, got engaged to my social media moderator, Veronica. She, we bonded over banning the haters. What can I say?
I love it. Yeah.
She was hired to make it so that I can focus on the forecasting. She would handle the rowdy commenters, of which
You have rowdy commenters and haters?
I get a lot of haters.
Why? Why?
Matter of fact, when I first met Veronica a few years ago, it was 3.5 years ago now. She could not believe how serious people take the weather up here in Northeast Pennsylvania. She's from the Philadelphia area, and they certainly don't get as interested in winter weather as we do up here. They hardly see any winter weather compared to what we see up here. I mean, they average 1 6-inch snowfall per year in the Philadelphia area. So they get excited when they do see the snow, but up here, it's a whole nother world with the weather competition among different outlets, and that's something she wasn't used to. So, we bonded over that. We bonded over banning the haters, and she did such a great job. I thought, why not, make her my wife?
Why not marry her, right? Yeah, hey, if she's got your back, and you know,
ride or die,
Yeah. Just, but who likes snow more, you or her? That's the real question.
That's a good question. I think I do, but maybe she just doesn't express it as well as I do. She's always willing to take me on a snow chase, though, so I give her credit. I have a seizure disorder, so I can't drive myself.
Yeah, did we even talk about that last time?
Not.
I don't think we did. Yeah,
I have a debilitating seizure disorder. I have seizures every day. They're petite mal.
Every day?
Every day. They're petite mal. So I don't fall on the floor. If I had one here during the podcast, you might not even notice. It'll just look like I'm staring for a few seconds. But if I was driving, that could be catastrophic.
Not good.
No, not good
for everyone.
For me or someone else. And I haven't driven a car since 2009. So it's been a long time for me. I get around, though. I take public transportation when I can. I've taken the snow train to Boston for a snow chase. I mean, that was fun to ride out of there on a train and plow the snow out of the way. There was like 30 inches of snow in front of the train.
That was probably pretty cool.
That was pretty awesome. But it does make it difficult to get around. And thankfully for Veronica, she has certainly made my life a heck of a lot easier over these last few years, and I
She's a
love
good
her.
sport.
She loves me, and
Yeah. Well, good for you guys.
hopefully
Yeah.
we'll be producing the next generation of meteorologists in the near future. And hey, maybe one day they'll be watching this podcast. So
You know what? Yeah.
I'm 39 years old, no kids yet, but I feel like it's time to start the nest.
Yeah. All right. So fire that factory up, right? Well, good for you guys, and it's really cool especially when you have a very supportive spouse, and I do as well, and it's something I say pretty often on this show, really, because it really, without that, I mean, you wouldn't be able to do what you do, especially if it's something that you absolutely love, and I know it seems like. Clearly you love what you do, and and back to the whole hater thing, by the way, and all that. First of all, one thing I think that I really like about you, that I think is great, is that no matter what, good or bad, hate or not, right, you're still always just yourself, and not a lot of people. Yeah, but the thing is, like, not a lot of people really could do that. There's not a lot of people will either just like change one way or the other, or just get all bent out of shape, but. One thing that I really like to see, like you just keep doing your thing no matter what, and you just keep going on, and you have a loyal fan base and loyal following, and it's cool, man. It's just really cool to see.
About to cross the 100,000 follower mark here soon. As a matter of fact, going off script here, why not? Last time I was here, we talked about some topics. One of them was censorship, and over the last year, I've been battling censorship on Facebook. The AI technology that they use
that monitors, garbage,
flagged my account over a year ago for unoriginal content, whatever that means. Everything I've ever posted was either directly posted by me, created by me, edited by me, sourced by me,
as original as can be,
right? So there's like a 0.1% of my posts that weren't filmed by me, but they were given credit, the people that sent those videos into me. So I felt like I did nothing wrong, and I paid a monthly fee to have an investigation done. So after
what was the outcome?
After a year, just this past Saturday, the decision came down that I didn't break any rules, and they restored my page to full access, full distribution. And a matter of fact,
I saw that. I saw that you shared that. Yeah,
it's funny because some of my top fans, my most loyal followers, haven't seen a post from me in almost a year.
It's funny you say that, because maybe that's partly why too. I feel like I haven't seen yours as much either. Sometimes my wife, like, she'll see your stuff and she'll say, "Hey, did you see the thing Mark posted?" I'm like, "No, I didn't."
If you seeked out my page, if you were the type of person that goes on Facebook, and which there are, they'll
manually searches,
go right to my page. Some people, they look at it over their breakfast every morning. I mean, it's my Patreon followers and subscribers. They're very loyal, and they hang on my every word when it comes to snow, and I really appreciate their support. I wouldn't be in the position I am having this conversation with you if it weren't for those Patreon supporters. So thank you, Patreon supporters. You're still supporting me, and I'm going to do my best to maintain a authenticity, be myself, and provide interesting content. And honestly, that's my goal with this conversation here today. Most people know me as a meteorologist, but
do you have other interests, Mark?
I do.
You do?
I do. I have
more than snow.
Much more than snow. So there's some topics that are peripheral to meteorology, climate, that interest me, and we'll touch on those here a bit today. But before we get into that, I do want to give you some updates on some things that we talked about last time.
Yeah, because there's been significant changes in some of the things since we talked about.
It's been 2 years, so on some fronts, there have been
the UFO thing, and
so the title of the podcast last time was UFOs, COVID, and Climate. Now, I did observe a UFO back in 2022.
I remember the story.
And so over Edwardsville, if you remember, the Biden administration had shot down reportedly 3 UFOs. This is the first time in U.S. history that missiles are being fired by the Air Force over North America, which you would think would require some explanation after the fact, or, an after action report, something.
Anything.
But in the last 2 years, we've gotten no updates. There's no debris to speak of. I mean, I do have a picture that was sent to me several years ago from a follower in Alaska that may or may not be real. It's on my Twitter profile. It's still out there. No one has debunked it yet.
Was it wreckage from one thing that got shot down up there?
Apparently wreckage. It looked like a wrecked Tic Tac style UFO, but again, I don't know. I can't speak to the authenticity of that photo, but to my knowledge, it hasn't been debunked yet. But what we didn't get an after action report from the Biden administration. We didn't get wreckage, but what we did get was the fact that they fired off 4 multi-million-dollar Sidewinder missiles at unidentified objects over friendly airspace. Now, the first rule of engagement is you must be able to identify your target before you shoot a missile off at it. So my question is this some sort of cover-up, or is it just incompetence? It seems to me that it's incompetence, that they wouldn't want to admit that they fired missiles at maybe some 10th graders science fair project or something.
Right.
I mean, we got nothing. We have no wreckage.
Yeah.
But we do have a bill for it's just several $1 million.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fuel for those jets that they were burning on those missions. I mean, who knows how much that cost?
Yeah.
The taxpayer deserves some explanation, in my opinion, whether you believe in UFOs or not. They shot missiles
Agreed.
at something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's a safety thing. Put the money thing aside, right? But it's like it's a safety thing.
Exactly. This is the only time in U.S. history that the Air Force is firing missiles over friendly airspace.
It's wild.
What's even more wild is that we never got an explanation of what they were shooting at.
Yeah, the last couple of years have been wild.
Yeah.
I mean, in a million different aspects, obviously, like the UFO
we're living
stuff
through some crazy times. Trump is back in office doing tariffs. I just heard before I walked in here 104% tariff on China. I'm all for it, by the way. I think the era of buying cheap junk from China needs to come to an end.
Do you think it's going to work out?
Well, our economy is based on decades of buying cheap junk from China. So do I think it's necessary? Yes. Do I think it's going to be painful? Yes. Do I think it's going to work out in the end? Yes. We'll get into this near the later on.
Yeah.
But,
we'll save it. We'll keep everybody in.
I have a lot
suspense.
more to say on this topic. Let's bring up some of my visual aids here.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we can do a look back at the winter here.
Let's take a look back at winter. Here on screen we have the temperatures over the course of the entire winter from December 1st to March 1st. Now, I didn't include March. March ended up being pretty warm, no snow. So we'll look at the official 3-month period from December through February, and you can see there were some warm periods there. I count about 3 or 4 above normal, significantly above normal periods there, but they were more than balanced out, as you can see on the graph there, by several below normal periods. And I think when you look back at the winter as a whole, it's more or less average to slightly below normal. And that was right in line with what I forecasted for the winter in this area. We can move on and look at snowfall for the country as a whole. There's some interesting things that I can point out here on the map.
Yeah, what are we looking at?
So this is the seasonal snowfall total for the country as a whole. Something that should stick out like a sore thumb on there is the large amount of snow that extends from Texas over to Louisiana along the Gulf Coast and through Florida. That area got a record amount of snow, over 1 foot. And as a matter of fact, in Florida, you'll see it on the next image that we bring up here, right there in the northwest portion of Florida, including the New Orleans, Louisiana area, over 10 inches of snow from one storm this winter. So that put them way above normal.
What do they normally get?
Hardly anything at all. If there are years where they don't get anything. So to say there's an average, you're taking like one storm every maybe 10, 20 years. And in this case, once in a lifetime storm, and you're averaging it up with a bunch of zeros. So it's proof that it does snow on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get into the climate topic here in a bit. But, this is one example that just goes to show you that we are indeed still in an ice age. Now, I'm going to explain that a bit later, but we are in an ice age, folks. We're in an interglacial portion of an ice age where the glaciers recede. But so long as there are ice caps on the North and South Pole, we're in an ice age. That hasn't always been the case, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next up, I want to show the snowfall for our area here in Northeast Pennsylvania. It's slightly below normal, about 10 inches below normal for the season. But take a look to the north. If you were to take a 2-hour car ride up Interstate 81, eventually you're going to get to Syracuse, and just north of Syracuse, you're going to encounter an area that saw over 300 inches of snow this past winter. It was one heck of a winter for upstate New York, and that was well forecasted by me way in advance.
I do remember seeing some of your predictions like before these happened. I actually do. Like the handful, remember I was saying before, like some posts, like I feel like for the last year I haven't seen a lot, but there have been some that I do, and I do remember you predicting some of these, and you were very, very accurate.
For the snowfall for the season, I think I was almost dead on, as dead on as you could be. I put Interstate 80 as roughly the 50% chance of below normal snowfall, meaning if you were south of Interstate 80, I was forecasting below normal snowfall, which is exactly what happened. If you were north of Interstate 80, I was forecasting increasingly less likelihood of below normal snowfall, to the point where you get into north of I-90. I was quite confident that they would have above normal snowfall. That's exactly what happened. The reason it happened is because we had record-breaking temperatures on the Great Lakes leading into this winter. We had a major polar vortex disruption in the fall that telegraphed to a cold air outbreak during the winter. All you need to get extreme snowfall downwind of the lakes is cold air and a warm lake surface. We had both this year. And so even when we didn't get these big East Coast nor'easters, downwind of the Great Lakes, they're measuring it in feet all winter long.
Dang.
Quite a winter up there.
Yeah, you'd be in snow heaven.
Yeah, I would have loved to spend some more time chasing up there this year. The problem was it was so prolific that had I gone into some of those areas, there wasn't much chance that I was going to get out.
You weren't going to be able to get around.
It just never ended.
Yeah,
like some of those other lake effect events that I went to, Hamburg, New York, when I saw 72 inches of snow in 24 hours. Well, that was over after.
So crazy, by the way, yeah.
We got dug out by the Army Corps of Engineers. They brought in the specialized equipment, and I was able to get home. This past winter, if I were to head up into like the Tug Hill Plateau there, I mean, there were stretches of time where you would not have been able to get out. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't drive myself, so that is rather a difficult scenario for me to manage.
Right.
Not to mention that the Greyhound buses were canceled. I was on a snow chase once this past winter where they canceled my trip while I was on the bus. So I'm heading to New York City to go down to Baltimore.
Was it you just had no ride back?
Well, I'm going from Scranton to New York City. I'm on the Mart's bus and then connect to Greyhound in New York City and go to Baltimore. They cancel the second leg of the trip. While we're already on the bus.
You're halfway there.
The bus driver gets us to New York City and says, well, the next leg of your trip was canceled. Good luck. And that was that.
What'd you do?
And so I went to the customer service desk there at the Intermodal Transport Center there in New York City. And the person at the desk cannot help you. The only thing that they can do is sell you a ticket. If anything goes wrong, you have to call customer service. You have to handle it yourself. That person is just a ticket salesperson. So that was frustrating. I was able to reschedule on a different bus line. However, I was the last one to get a seat on that bus. There were about 11 people that
didn't make it.
Intended to go to Baltimore that couldn't go because there were no seats.
Wow.
So, you got
lucky.
Being a storm chaser and not being able to drive because of a seizure disorder has definitely been difficult. It's honestly amazing that I've been able to do it, quite frankly. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for Veronica in many situations. So thank you, Veronica. You're the best.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big challenge, man. I did know, obviously I knew that you didn't drive, and I think I knew about the seizures too. But I think we just, like I said, we never really talked about it much. I knew, that was the case. But
in all fairness, it's not something I tend to dwell on.
Right.
I mean, I'm stuck with it for my life, so. It is what
it seems like you're managing pretty well.
I do my best.
You get around pretty well for not being able to drive, man. I mean, I can't even imagine, not driving, at this point in my life.
I did buy an e-bike in November as a sort of a test, an inverse test of the snowblower jinx. Have you heard of this? The snowblower curse? If you buy a new snowblower right before winter, you're guaranteed you're not going to need it.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So,
is that like an NEPA thing, or is that just like in general?
It seems to hold.
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
Yeah. So, all right, so you got the bike.
I decided as a snow lover, I'm going to test the inverse of this curse.
Okay.
Buy an e-bike that you can only use if temperatures are above freezing. Right after it got delivered in December, it stayed below freezing pretty much the whole winter. Yeah. As you saw by that graph I showed earlier, it was pretty cold for several stretches throughout the winter. I wouldn't classify it as warm, that's for sure.
So did you get on that bike?
Not yet. No.
Because we had this little bit of warm stretch right before this.
The problem is, once you ride it, then the oil and everything that I put on it to protect it from the cold over the winter.
I see.
I would have to reapply that every time the freezing temperatures come. And I just don't want to do that.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna wait till it's warm for good, and then I'll try out my e-bike. Try to enjoy the spring weather. Take the advice of some of my haters.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing some pictures and hopefully some video. Maybe I might do some live streams while I'm riding the bike. I got to come up with a way to make content during the nice weather. Yeah, hook like a GoPro or something up on you got something. You can throw, maybe fly this. Fly the drone over you.
That's right. I got the drone too. I can fly it over me while I'm riding the bike.
Yeah.
So let's get into a bit of the climate discussion. So. Last time I was here, I discussed the geology perspective of this with volcanic eruptions. Now, Hunga, Tonga.
Yeah, what the hell's Hunga, Tonga, by the way?
It's the image you have here is a picture of the eruption that occurred in early 2022. It actually started late 2021. Officially, they're calling it 2022, but it was an undersea volcano. So it wasn't above the ocean. It was actually below the ocean. Mm-hmm. When it erupted, it was the most violent eruption in modern history since 1992. So it's been quite a while. It vaporized 40 billion gallons of seawater and sent it into the stratosphere.
Kind of a lot.
Water vapor is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. Any other greenhouse gas, water vapor is chief among them. So if you vaporize a whole bunch of seawater and pump it into the atmosphere, you're going to see a temperature spike. That's what we saw over the last couple of years. It's very pronounced on the temperature graph. But if you notice, the long-term trend there is upwards since 1979. But as I'm going to show you, it all depends on where you start measuring the temperatures from. That will determine what sort of trend you observe. If you start it during the coldest decade in modern history, the 1970s, well, any time after that, you're going to see a warming trend.
Yeah.
If you were to start this in the 1930s, the warmest decade, you would see a cooling trend. But I need to point out that the water vapor that was vaporized by Hunga Tonga is still in the atmosphere. Even now in 2025, even though it erupted now 3, almost 4 years ago, it's still up there. And the next image, you'll see that.
Oh, I'm slacking here as the photo assistant guy.
So here we go. This image I've illustrated at the bottom with an emoji where the volcanic eruption is.
See that? Yeah.
That's in between 21 and 22. Then you see nothing but green afterwards.
Yeah, that thick green. What's up?
Yeah, that is the concentration of water vapor in the stratosphere. Way up.
So that's where you're saying how it's still, it's
still
lingering.
Up there. It's still circulating. It's going to take until about 2030
really?
for it to actually fall out of the stratosphere. So if it were only in the troposphere, it would rain out pretty quickly. But the stratosphere is disconnected mostly from the troposphere, and so it takes a very long time for anything that gets ejected into the stratosphere to work its way down and out of the atmosphere. If this eruption had not been water vapor, if this had been, say, a terrestrial volcano pumping a bunch of soot and dirt and debris up into the stratosphere, we would have seen significant global cooling, possibly catastrophic, depending on how big the eruption was. So the fact that this was underwater kind of
it was kind of a good thing.
Kind of saved us. Yeah. And a lot of the global warming that you're going to hear, at least today in 2025, a lot of the narrative around global warming.
Oh, wait, hold on. I got to ask. Are we in a climate crisis? Are we saying we're in a climate crisis? Is that what are you getting at here?
I do not think we are currently in a climate crisis. I think we narrowly averted a climate crisis
because of this.
Because of this. If this had been a terrestrial volcano, we would most certainly be in a climate crisis right now. Let's take a look at, speaking of CO2 and volcanic activity. So here's two charts. On the left, you have ocean heat content in red. You can see that's been going up steadily since about the 1980s, late 1970s. That is a direct response to the increasing seismic activity in the ocean. So at the center of the ocean, you have a crack in the ocean floor where there's magma coming up, and the seafloor spreads apart from that. And eventually that becomes your continents over vast time. But since the 1970s, the seismic activity has been increasing. It's now 400% higher than it was in the 1970s. That is a proxy for volcanic activity, and therefore how much heat is being added to the ocean through those volcanic eruptions. Many of these volcanoes, by the way, we haven't even discovered yet.
Yeah, because it's like I don't know what the stat is. Maybe you know offhand. If not, I could try to look it up quick. But like, there's a large percentage of the ocean floor that just hasn't been mapped out because it's just too deep and too vast and all that.
I don't know the exact.
It's high up there. I'll try to look it up while we're talking.
I don't know the exact number of the seafloor that's been mapped, but it is very small. The graph on the left or on the right there is a graph of carbon dioxide. And I want to put this in perspective because a lot of people who aren't well versed on exactly what's happening in the atmosphere are going to be concerned about CO2 and its impact on the climate. As you can see from that graph, this is what you're seeing is called diminishing returns. Now, I don't know if you've ever played a video game like World of Warcraft, for example. Diminishing returns is an important mechanic when you're dealing with video games, particularly around the stun mechanic. For example, people that don't play video games, let's say you can stun someone for 15 seconds, as you can in World of Warcraft. If you were able to do that for 15 seconds every time you hit them with it, well, they'd never be able to play their character. So what World of Warcraft did was, okay, the first time you get the full length duration of the stun. The second time you get half, the third time you get a third.
Dumbed down.
So every time you hit them with a stun, you get a diminished return from that. The same concept applies to CO2. There is a saturation point in the atmosphere beyond which every amount of CO2 that you add increases the temperature less than the previous amount of CO2 that you added. So it's, an exponential curve decreasing as you increase CO2. You can see plotted on there where we are today, where it was in the pre-industrial period. Let's talk about some failed predictions, shall we? So I'm going to point out here, the UN predicts disaster if global warming is not checked.
Oh wait, hold on. I forgot. I pulled this up. I found the and we'll come right back to this. The ocean floor. It says as of 2024, roughly 26.1% of the global seafloor has been mapped. So we'll call it 75% just to keep around number. 75% hasn't been mapped. 3/4
of the seafloor hasn't been mapped. Vast majority of the seafloor is where you're going to find volcanic activity. So to think that we have the climate all figured out, we know where all these inputs are coming from. We don't.
Right.
We haven't even discovered all the volcanoes on the seafloor.
Only 25%.
So
it's crazy.
Look, I want to make something clear. I'm not coming into this discussion as if I know all the answers. I don't.
You don't?
I don't know.
Wait a second. I thought that's why I was having you on.
No. I want to point out what we don't know. I want to shed light on...
Yeah, and talk about it.
Yeah.
Ideas.
What we don't know, what needs to be better understood. So here's an example of a failed climate prediction from the past. This is dated from June 29th, 1989, by the way. A senior UN environmental official says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. Now, let me ask you, has a single country been wiped off the face of the earth due to rising sea levels since 1989?
Not that I know
don't
of.
think so.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's been a history of failed predictions in climate science, and I would argue that trend continues today because we don't know everything. I don't know everything. Climate scientists don't know everything.
I definitely don't know everything.
So that's an important.
That's why I have you on.
Important,
by the way,
because
you definitely know more than me.
I
at least about this.
I researched this. This is peripheral to my field. So and I'm a citizen of Earth. So when someone tells me it's a catastrophe, the climate's changing, well, that concerns me. I'm going to look into it, and I have. So I'm going to share with you now some important graphs. Now, this next graph I had with me the last time I was here. If you just zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see the title. So accelerated warming in the U.S., that sort of narrative that the temperatures are accelerating faster and faster and faster. Well, this is a graph of all the temperatures dating all the way back to 1895. And as you can see, there's a very slight increase in the average temperature represented by the red line from 1895 to today. Meanwhile, the CO2 graph, which are those dotted those dots along the way, that is exponentially increasing.
For sure.
To the moon, no question about it. But is that a bad thing? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what has happened in Earth's history with CO2 and climate change. I've got several graphs here, and I'm going to try to shed some light on some things. So this first graph plots both temperature and CO2 over about the past 600 million years. You can see at the very right side of this graph, there's a sharp upward trend there. But is that unprecedented? No. You can see there are several other times in Earth's history where the temperature sharply increased, sharply decreased. And as a matter of fact, if you really look closely back towards right above where it says the first amphibians, not where that's pointing, but the dip in the graph there, you can see that dip preceded the drop in CO2. So it was not the CO2 that was controlling the temperatures. It seems that CO2 follows temperatures. So when we're seeing temperatures increasing in the modern times. Well, CO2 also increases.
Yeah.
Now, the narrative is that CO2 is the control knob that increases the temp. That's not the case at all. So let's go on.
Wait, what is the answer? Are we getting there?
We'll get there.
I'm jumping ahead.
It's mostly water vapor and the sun.
Okay.
In conclusion, it's mostly water vapor and the sun. The sun goes through long periods of change, short periods of change. And when those overlap, you get periods of warming, periods of cooling. What you see here, this is the geologic time scale to show you what the Earth's temperature and CO2 were at different points in Earth's history. We live during the Holocene. That's the far right side of the graph. You can see relative to at least the last 600 million years, we live in one of the coldest time periods during that history. Not the coldest, but it's pretty close to the bottom. We're on the upswing. So, naturally, we're coming out of the Little Ice Age. You would expect that temperatures are going to warm. Now, as we get into the next graph, this is from John Shuchuk, which I'll talk about his work a bit later.
Shout out to John Shuchuk.
This is solar cycles. We've got the Roman warm period plotted there. We've got the Dark Ages. That was a cold period. We've got the medieval warm period. We've got the Little Ice Age, which I just mentioned. We're coming out of that. And now we're in the modern warm period. As you can see, the composite cycle, which is basically where these two differing solar cycles, the 2,500 year cycle and the 1,000 year cycle, where those line up and you get these contributions where they coincide, like the Little Ice Age, you can see both of them were favoring colder temperatures. So we got a Little Ice Age. The current trend is that they're all on the upswing. Solar activity is increasing. This is a good opportunity to mention today is the anniversary of the Great North American Solar Eclipse that happened exactly 1 year ago today. I chased that. That was a memorable event.
That's right. It's funny. I just got that memory on Facebook too. We had my wife and I. We had we were bad citizens of Earth, and we forgot to get our the solar, the glasses, whatever you call them, right? But we ended up finding them last minute. But we were both disappointed in our efforts as human beings, and because we neglected to get them so we could stare at the sun and not burn our eyeballs out. But like I said, we found them, and I had a memory today on Facebook of our goofy post. We had like a little party, with our son, and just we made a little goofy thing of it, but it was fun.
Now, solar eclipse has nothing to do with the solar cycles. However, we have also seen in the last couple of years a lot of solar activity locally here in Northeast PA. We saw the Northern Lights for the first time in my lifetime. I was outside on
blew that, by the way. I totally blew that.
I was outside on the street here in Edwardsville taking selfies with the Northern Lights over my head. It was unbelievable. So believe it, the sun is increasing in activity. We're near the peak of a solar cycle. So again, that's one line of evidence for why we might expect that there should be warming naturally, regardless of what we're doing with CO2 or not.
Right.
Now, some people think that pumping CO2 into the atmosphere is a really bad thing. I'm going to explain why it isn't. But first, I want you to see this. This is a graph of the last 500 million years of temperature. Now, I mentioned we're at relatively one of the colder periods in Earth history, and you can see that very clearly on this graph. We are on the upswing from the Little Ice Age. So, we should expect that just to get back to normal, we have to warm up from where we are today.
Yeah.
So if you look at this graph, those peaks there where you see those reds, the equatorial Pangea was too hot for peat swamps at one area at one point in time. And at that same time, we did not have ice caps at the North and South Pole. So there was no ice age. There have been times in Earth history where there was no ice anywhere on Earth. There was hot house.
And I'm totally like going to divert, but we can come right back. But it just reminded me, I know we're probably going to get to it because you had sent me some stuff about the pyramids, but with the recent pyramid stuff that those recent new discoveries, like I also just started looking into it a little bit more myself and came across again, I don't know how true it is or not, right? And I'm sure you could probably talk about it more, and we will in a bit. That there's other pyramids where the current ice caps are, and they're covered obviously by snow and ice.
Perhaps in Antarctica. Now there's no land at the North Pole, but in Antarctica, perhaps. I don't know. I haven't researched that very well. I know there's one mountain peak in particular that does look like a pyramid, but I can assure you that is a mountain. Now, what's under the ice, though, we don't know. Yeah. There's been a lot of intrigue to go there. And curiously enough, I mean, nobody's allowed to go there. So it would be the perfect hiding spot to put something you didn't want anybody to see. I don't know if there's anything like that down there, but we may never find out. Next graph explains why increasing CO2 was not necessarily a bad thing. Here's just the last 160 million years. This is the graph of CO2 steadily decreasing. And it got so low that you're going to see, let's go to the next graph. During the last ice age, CO2 levels dropped to record lows. They were so low, in fact, that on the next graph you're going to see, had they hit 150 parts per million, which they came very close during the ice age, all plants would have ceased photosynthesis, and we would not be having this conversation. We were this close to all life on Earth being extinguished because we didn't have enough CO2. Humans have reversed that. I philosophically believe that it is our purpose on this planet to put the CO2 back into the atmosphere. It got into the Earth because it was once in the atmosphere and was sequestered. We need to cycle it. Now, it's not good to just overwhelm the atmosphere with an unending amount of CO2, but clearly there is a minimum amount of CO2 that needs to be there.
Otherwise, we're not here.
Otherwise, we're dead.
Yeah, there's no more podcasts with Bill and Mark here.
So, okay, it appears to me like I have your attention. I hope you at home, you're also interested, because this is the moment of the podcast where things are going to get interesting if you're sort of on the fence with the global warming thing. The next image is going to show you what the change in leaf area over the Earth between 1982 and 2015. Because we've increased CO2 over the Earth, plants are now growing more. We can see it from outer space. We can measure the amount of green on the Earth increasing dramatically because of the amount of CO2 that is now available to plants. Ask any botanist, ask any horticulturist who has a greenhouse. If you fill that greenhouse with more CO2, the plants grow better. They get taller. They have more fruit, more food. So look, people that are telling you we need to get all the CO2 out of the atmosphere, it's a poison, that's nonsense.
Right.
CO2 is plant food.
It's essential.
It is an essential. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe California was one of the states that declared CO2 to be a pollutant, which is absurd. I mean, plants cannot survive without CO2. Hope I'm clear on that.
Yeah, say that one more time. Yeah.
We eat plants and animals. The animals we eat plants and other animals that eat plants. If the plants die, everything dies. So we are doing a noble job here of keeping life afloat. I mean, it's close. to a global extinction during the last ice age. Most of the North American mammals, the Pleistocene mammals, the megafauna, all went extinct. We had animals here in Pennsylvania you would not believe. We had beavers that were the size of a cow.
Come on.
Yeah. We had the short-faced bear that was in the area. I mean, that was like a 15-foot tall bear.
We probably still have those around here, but they might just be...
No, that's probably one of the animals that...
I thought I saw one on the square last week.
That's probably one of the animals that prevented migration into North America prior to the extinction of those megafauna, because those things were no joke.
Yeah, ain't nobody messing with them.
Mm-mm. So next I want to show post-glacial sea level rise. So this graph is a perfect example of why sea level rise is not a concern whatsoever. So for the last 6,000 to 7,000 years on that graph, if you go over from the right, you can see it's basically flat at 0 up there near the top. That means sea level has basically not changed for the last 4,000 to 6,000 years, any substantial amount. But if you go prior to that, you can see it dramatically increased, and in some cases nearly overnight, and those are marked there by meltwater pulse 1A. That was during the Younger Dryas period, the peak of the last glaciation. There was a sudden meltdown, and this is where I think all the global flood myths come from, that meltwater pulse 1A. The glaciers suddenly melted. Now, if you do a calculation on the energy requirements to melt 2 kilometers of ice, you're going to find out that it requires a heck of a lot of energy.
I was going to say, it's got to be a lot.
So it's not exactly clear how we went from 2 kilometer thick ice sheets over much of North America to what we have today.
Very quickly.
Extremely quickly. There are some theories that a comet hit the ice sheet and vaporized a big chunk of it, which would have put a lot of water vapor up into the atmosphere. Similar to what I started the podcast
That's right. It's coming back. So, it's all coming back.
We're circling back. We're connecting everything here. And I'm trying to get you and the audience to realize that what we're living through today has happened in the past. Nothing we're experiencing.
This isn't new. Like, and everyone's freaking out, and it's like this is just kind of the cycle. Is that right? Do I have this right? Am I following?
Not necessarily a cycle per se, but it's not catastrophic.
Okay,
and you can see sea level has barely changed over the last 4,000 years. Not to mention, there's far less ice on land today. So what little ice is on land that's melting contributes very little to additional sea level rise. Doesn't mean it's not going to rise a little bit here or there over 100 years, maybe it's a little bit, but that prediction from 1989 was just wildly out of touch with reality.
Pretty wild.
And there have been many other predictions. I believe in the early 2000s, they were saying we were going to see an ice-free Arctic during the summer by 2014. We have yet in 2025 to see anything close to an ice-free Arctic at any point during.
Has there been anything that has been predicted like along those lines? Maybe not as extreme, but has there been like any other ones that like actually have came true? I mean, maybe there's are, and I'm just not really thinking of them. I know you would know better, but. Or at least close to, or somewhat. Increasing average temperatures by way of increasing low temperatures, which is a function of the increase in atmospheric water vapor that doesn't allow temperatures to drop as much at night. The next graph here, though, is going to shed some light on exactly what the heck is going on here, because John Shuchuk, now, I'm going to cover some of his work. I'm using him as a source. He's done the research. He's done the due diligence, plotted the data. What you see here in red is altered temperature data.
In blue is raw temperature data for the USHCN network. This is the oldest observation network that we have in the United States. It includes thermometers that have been in place for 100 years or more in some locations. For some reason, NOAA has decided that it's within their purview to alter past temperature observations. So you have the raw data, which were the readings, the temperature readings from the 1900s all the way up to today, and up to 2020 there. Notice the graphs look almost identical. It's just that the altered data is shifted downward until you get to the year 2000, and then they go in opposite directions.
Why is that?
The reason is it started to become more and more difficult to manufacture the data as you got closer and closer to real time. It's one thing to alter past data to fit a narrative. It's another thing to alter it in real time and have it line up with what you're expecting. So that's what they did. They went back, they altered the past temperature data. What it created was this artificial warming trend. So now, in my opinion, this calls into question any conclusion you want to make about global warming. Because the oldest temperature data set in the United States has been corrupted by manipulation of data. What purpose they could possibly have for doing this, they're going to have to answer for that, and hopefully they will one day. They claim that the method they use is peer-reviewed. Now, I would argue that I don't care who approved your methodology or who said it's okay to do that. I disagree. I think if I measured a temperature somewhere, I'm going to be confident that that's the measurement I observed and recorded. So for you to come back like 20 years, 30 years later and change it, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
So NOAA's doing that. Don't know why. They claim they have a peer-reviewed process for to explain it, and they say it's on the up and up, and it's apparently to compensate for changing thermometer technology, changing placement of the thermometers. So, all right, let me put this in other words. Let's say I was going to use a ruler that my great-grandfather gave me, and I'm going to measure the wall of my house on the same date every year, just to make sure it's not settling, there's no changes going on, whatever the reason is, I'm doing it with the same ruler. That's important.
Okay.
So now let's say, I don't know, we talked about a comet earlier. Let's say a comet hits my house while I'm away somewhere, I'm eating lunch. The comet hits my house, totally destroys the house, walls destroyed, rulers destroyed. I decide, well, I've been taking these measurements every year for how many decades? I want to keep it going. So what do? I borrow a ruler from the neighbor, and instead of measuring the wall that no longer exists, I go to the neighbor's house and measure his wall with a different ruler than I was using before. And then I'm going to record those measurements
And say it's the same
and somehow now we have to make the argument to square it up with the climate debate.
Right.
Somehow we have to make the argument that those measurements with a new ruler of my neighbor's house have some sort of meaning to what happened with the measurements with my wall at my house. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So my belief is that if you have data from the past, it's accurate. I mean, you should take it at face value. There should be very little reason you have to alter that. Now, I can understand, thermometers degrade over time, so replace them. I mean, you don't go back and change the temperature that they recorded. It's absurd. So, okay, next up, let's look at some of John's work. So not only are they...
Yeah, by the way, explain who John Shuchuk is real
John
quick, too.
Shuchuk, he's a researcher. I follow him on X, and I've looked at his work and I view it as credible. So I'm going to promote it because I think he's done good work here. He's looking into something that needs to be shed light on, and I'm going to use what small little megaphone I have to do that. So here's an example of what's called a ghost station. So NOAA is not only altering temperature data in the past, they are manufacturing temperature data from weather stations that no longer exist. So he has called them ghost stations. So here's an example in Idaho. It was a station that was there for a long time, but no longer there. But NOAA still fabricates temperature data for this weather station. And there's a couple other ones here. I think I included 2 or 3 of them. Here's another ghost station. This one's from Merriman, Nebraska. Again, ever since 2011 now, so they've been doing it for almost 15 years. They're fabricating temperature data. I mean, this is a multi-decade long data manipulation scheme.
Yeah, why?
Well, if we go back to the altered data graph, so you can see why. If you alter the past data and make it colder than it actually was, it makes the current trend look, oh my God,
like there's a problem.
The temperatures are skyrocketing. So, but what I think they're counting on is that there are very few people left alive that were around in the 1930s.
So there's no one to refute it.
There's nobody, and the ones that are still around that experienced the 1930s, they're in the nursing home. They're not on social media. They don't know
what's going on.
They're not there to argue against it. But the 1930s were without a doubt the warmest in U.S. history, warmer than today. That was the Dust Bowl. I mean, just think about this narrative they're trying to get us to believe here over the last 20 years. They want you to believe that every year it's warmer than the year before. It's the warmest in history every year.
It's getting worse and worse.
And everywhere on Earth is warmer than everywhere else, and everywhere is warm and faster than everybody else. It can't all be true. It just can't be. The data does not support it. Finally, this last ghost station, this is a good one. They built a highway right over the top of where the weather station was. Obviously, if the weather station were there, you'd be having all kinds of traffic collisions with a weather station. But South Carolina, Blackville ghost station, ever since 2000. So they're doing this one for 25 years now. They've been manufacturing temperature data for this, and they're going to continue. Why? I guess maybe you'll have to have somebody from NOAA. NOAA come in.
Yeah. You know, by the way, I have to mention. I was going to mention it before, but I didn't want to interrupt because you were really on to something here. It made me think about a few years ago. It was actually 4 years ago because I looked up. I forgot when it was because it was so long ago. I had over time I've tracked analytics of listeners and where they've all been. So prior to August of 2021, I've had and at least one. I'm not saying I have like a million listeners in all parts of the world, right? But I've up until 2021, August, I had listeners in 6 out of 7 continents. And we can only imagine, you can just guess which continent is the only one that I haven't.
I'm going to guess Antarctica.
Yeah.
Although, there are scientists at McMurdo Station that could be listening.
Well, but I did, and that's the point. So I think, I forget what it was, but I put, I remember who it was, but I put a post out on social media like, hey, because I was just I wanted to be able to say like, hey, I reached all 7 continents, right?
Yeah.
And but I did, and I just threw a social media post through a friend of a friend actually in the podcast industry, a guy by the name of Chris Dunstone. He was a retired first sergeant in the United States Air Force, and he was in McMurdo Station, just like you said, and I got a friend of mine that saw my post just recommended my podcast to him, and he literally happened to just land. Like he was there, and he was there for I don't know how long he was there for. I forget. I have a little blog up on maybe I'll post the link in the
Probably there
comments.
for like 6 months or something.
Something like that. Yeah, I forget whatever they do, but he was there obviously, forecasting the weather in the surrounding areas and blah blah blah. And he, our mutual friend of ours, and again, I don't know him. I know him now, right? But a mutual friend of mine recommended my podcast, and the guy actually, and I'll have to throw his picture up on the screen because I do have a picture. Where the heck is it? But yeah, so the guy actually, he subscribed to my show and he listened and he took a picture of himself, like, all freaking bundled up, like right outside the station. And I forget what the temp was then, but really cold, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. It was just pretty cool that, like, never did I think that would happen. And, like I said, just through a social media post, nothing, and it wasn't even like a viral thing. It was just like, I got like 50 likes or something on it. But again, through a friend, that lives out in Iowa, just said, oh, I know somebody that actually might be there. And, I'll shoot him this info. And if he listens, he listens. If he doesn't, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And sure shit, he did.
Well, the next frontier, I guess, is Mars. Elon's planning to put some people there in the next few years.
I'll have to start sending them some more DMs. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, by the way.
I want to talk about one last thing we covered last time.
Was it with the climate change?
Another top. I guess this is the end of the topics that we discussed from the previous
climate change stuff. Yeah,
the previous podcast, the updates and stuff. So now some new developments that are interesting, peripherally related to this. This image is a 3D model put out by a research team that claims to have found structures under the Great Pyramid of Egypt.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this.
The technology. Now, I've fallen deep down the rabbit hole on this to try to research.
I did too,
this.
but I know you probably did way more than me.
The technology they're using, as I understand it, measures differences in vibrational signatures at the surface of the Earth in order to get an understanding of what is below. Mm-hmm. The idea is that there are these vibrations in the Earth, and if you have a structure under it, it's going to vibrate it in such a way that you can detect that vibration and at the surface all the way, and then come up with this.
Yeah.
Now, personally,
the cylinders.
Yeah, they claim there are these 2-kilometer long structures underneath the pyramid, which, if true, that would be the largest man-made, quote-unquote, man-made structures on Earth. I had a commenter say, bold of you to assume it's man-made. So
yeah.
But so my take on all this, so without getting too hung up on this, I think they have found something. They're using satellites to detect, as I mentioned, vibrational signatures in the surface of the Earth. So it's possible they found some voids, some structures, but I think it's a bit of an overreach that they could, from the data that I've seen, reproduce this. That seems like maybe it's a bit of a PR stunt to drum up interest in the pyramids. It worked. It got me.
Definitely. Yeah, we're all into it.
So certainly, I think it's possible they found something. What exactly, I don't think we'll ever know until excavations are done or other techniques are done. I don't think the technology itself can possibly be.
You don't think it could be that
I don't
that
think
good or accurate or
accurate to,
and to get that
not only to
deep.
get that deep, because underneath the Giza Plateau, about 10 meters down, it's all water. It's the water table is flooded from the Nile River. So that is another complication to being able to peer into the depths under the pyramid. But this technology has been shown to accurately map the internal rooms of the pyramid that we know about. But that's above the surface of the Earth. So, I mean, that's little bit different. You're looking through an object that's above the Earth. You can see it from different angles. Yeah. Once you start talking about below the surface, I think the resolution goes way, way down. So I think this was an overreach. But the pyramids were likely built, at least if you believe the mainstream archaeologists, were likely built around 10,000 years ago during the the Younger Dryas, during that meltdown of the glaciers, during one of the most catastrophic climate change periods in history, and yet humans were building the pyramids, which still stand today. Now, Cleopatra, I don't know if you know this, but Cleopatra is closer to us in time than she is to the building of the pyramids.
Wow.
And, you know, she was around about a few thousand years ago. So the pyramids are really, really old.
Very old.
They're possibly way older than we even give them credit for. And I'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah, because that's wild. Yeah.
But first, some breaking news. Dire wolves.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Dire wolves are back.
They're
Look
back.
at those things.
This is crazy.
These wolves are about 15% larger than modern wolves. They've been extinct for about 10,000 years since the Younger Dryas, the Pleistocene era. These are mammals that are being de-extincted by a company called Colossal. They are working on several different Pleistocene species to bring back from extinction. We humans are pretty good at adding species to the extinction list, and now we're starting to bring them back, which I think is a good sign. Some people might not like the idea of a pack of dire wolves running around, but I assure you they're not releasing them into the wild.
So this isn't going to be like a Jurassic Park scenario?
It's,
or is that next?
I mean, that seems like it seems like that's where we're at.
We're using testing the waters.
The same technology that they used to create the Indominus Rex,
right,
to make this. Now, there's some argument: is this a dire wolf? Or
I know.
Is this
I did see. I saw some posts today. I didn't really read them, so I can't really speak too much on it. But I did see, some people saying that these aren't actually dire wolves.
Well, there are also those who say no, they are actually dire wolves. That you're just making a philosophical argument rather than a biological argument. Now, genetically, they are dire wolves.
Yeah, I'm looking at it thinking again right now. Genetic, yeah.
But the process that was used to create them opens the door for the philosophical argument that they are genetically modified organisms. Fair enough.
Sure. Okay. Right.
Whatever you want to call
So that's
them.
their argument saying that's not actually.
We have to name this thing. It's a dire wolf. So, as far as I'm concerned,
2.0.
Yeah, dire wolf 2.0.
It's here.
It's here. This is a first step in bringing back even more Pleistocene mammals. There's the dire wolves as puppies. Look at them. Cute.
Do you want one?
Adorable. Yeah, wouldn't that be cute?
Yeah.
Boy, they would get big really fast though.
Yeah.
They grow really big.
Kind of overnight, kind of like the temperatures and all that.
And they grow a mane too, apparently, which we didn't know this until these dire wolves were actually manufactured, I guess you would call it.
Right.
It's
Speaking of manes, yours is a little bit tame since last time. It was like down to here, I think.
Last time I was here, I was about 20 pounds heavier, and I had about 20-inch longer of a beard.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I think the beard maybe the beard hid the weight. I mean. So
maybe
I don't think you didn't look 20 pounds.
I was.
I mean, you dedefinitely look slimmer, and obviously too. You got the beard trimmed down, and you lost the weight. So
I was recently weighed at the doctor's office, and I'm at 193, which I haven't been under 200 pounds for several years.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? Did you change something that?
Mainly just it's intermittent fasting. I do not eat before 2 p.m. And so I won't eat. Some people eat 3 times a day. I could never do that. I eat like 1 or 2 times a day. And I won't do it before 2 p.m. I don't drink soda. That's probably the biggest reason why I've maintained a slim weight. I eat Nardone's pizza almost every day for lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm certainly not eating the healthiest of diets for lunch. But
so do you have like a permanently burned roof of your mouth from the cheese? Or?
No.
You've probably figured out ways to.
I've perfected preparing
probably have
Nardone's pizza
great
in an air
technique,
fryer.
huh?
Yep. In an air fryer.
I'll have to try that out.
350 for 7 minutes.
Oh.
Perfect.
That's the trick, huh?
Yeah. It's
Now I want to eat that tonight.
I love it for lunch. I mean, it's satisfying and the price is right these days. The prices are going up. But Veronica keeps me healthy with a good meal for dinner.
Other than the Nardones,
she takes good care of me. So hey, gentlemen, that's what you want in a woman. You want a woman that can cook because
if you can't,
I mean, I can. I just why compete with like a 5-star chef?
Sure, of course. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Anything I make is not going to be as good as what she'll make. So
besides the Nardones, I mean,
I could probably beat her in a Nardones cooking competition.
Cook off. Yeah. Well, next time, please bring some Nardones here. We'll have to part three is we'll have to, I don't know if your air fryer is big, how big it is or not, but maybe you can bring it. We could fire up some Nardones next time.
Nardones is great.
I'm into it.
I add Himalayan pink salt and pepper to it. No other toppings. That's my favorite.
Sounds good. Yeah, Mark's way. We'll call that.
Back to the Pleistocene. So what did the Earth look like during the Pleistocene? Let's bring up the map of the Earth. So here's a full map of the Earth. You can see in white there over North America, Europe, Asia. Those are the glaciers that came down from the north and covered the vast majority of North America. Not as much in Europe, although they were present. Here in Northeast Pennsylvania, the glaciers were about 2 kilometers thick, and they ended right at Hickory Run State Park, just to our south, and Boulder Field. You can see where the glaciers dropped the boulders and then retreated. That's a local interesting spot. If you're into local climate, you want to see a fascinating site from the past. I highly recommend Boulder Field. So let's zoom in on North America here and take a closer look. You can see what the ice sheet looked like. The next image will be the zoom.
Here we go.
There we go. So there you can see, if you just zoom in there, you can see Northeast PA. The extent of that glacier was essentially, right down along Interstate 80, maybe just to the south in eastern Pennsylvania. And that's where you had all those boulders that were picked up from the glaciers deposited. So that's what our climate was for a very long time. 2 kilometer thick glacier over North America. Then suddenly, in a flash, it melted. And as I showed you before, there was a big increase in sea level as all that ice melted. The theory is a comet or an asteroid or something hit somewhere in that ice sheet and vaporized it. That's why we don't see a crater in the ground.
That was my next question.
We do see a lot of platinum group metals, which is an indication of a cometary.
That makes sense.
Cosmic impact right at the time that we see that big pulse of water. So, while it's not conclusive that it caused a global flood along the lines of Noah's Ark, it seems that since every culture around the world has that similar story, and we have evidence for a massive global flood, I don't know, put 2 and 2 together, I think we have a correlation here. Now, back to the de-extinction. So one of the Pleistocene mammals that everybody is fond of is the woolly mammoth.
I was going to say that before. We're bringing those back too, or what?
Yeah, so the goal is to bring them back. They're working on it right now in Siberia. This next map I'm going to show you here, you're going to have to zoom in on this. This is what the natural range of the woolly mammoth looked like during the Ice Age. You can see it went from Europe all across Asia, Alaska, Western Canada, even came
at
down
Edwardsville. I think I see. I think
not quite.
Close.
Okay, pretty close.
Let's just say that, just so you know.
But yeah,
you can say they were in your backyard.
Northwest Pennsylvania, Western New York, where the modern day Great Lakes are today. It's possible that when the glaciers had receded enough, they were in that area. But when the glaciers were there, that area was covered.
Sure.
But there was this narrow area in Western North America there. You can see where they would have been able to come down between the 2 ice sheets. There was a curious anomaly there where it was just an ice-free passage to come over the Bering land bridge there between Russia and Alaska. Because the sea level was lower, you could just walk across from Russia to Alaska. Once the glaciers melted, the sea level rose, and then North America became detached from Asia. We're actually attached, and believe it or not.
Yeah.
We're one continent. We're just separated by a little water now. If you go down to the next image, this is Pleistocene Park. This is where they are attempting to habitate these woolly mammoths. They're preparing the area, trying to get, their goal is to get a herd going and eventually recreate what's called the mammoth steppe ecological environment. So when you had these woolly mammoths roaming around during the Pleistocene, because they were so big and lumbering, I mean, they're knocking down saplings, they're preventing tree growth, which is important when it comes to climate change.
Right.
Trees in the Arctic warm things up really, really fast because when the tree's sticking up out of the ground, what sunlight does hit it, that heat gets transmitted into the soil. And as you can sometimes see in the winter, when you have a nice fresh, like a tiny fresh snow cover in the late winter, sometimes right around the tree, you'll see the snow melt right around the base first. That's because the sun's hitting particularly with evergreens, the sun's hitting those leaves and the heat is being transferred through the roots and it's melting the snow.
Nature's fascinating, man.
That happens. Mammoths were around. When they were around, they were preventing trees from growing far to the north in the Arctic, keeping the climate cooler. So there is this theory that since we're warming the climate, why not bring back mammoths, have them roam around there through Asia, and where the next image will show you where they could potentially roam today. This would be where the climate is appropriate for them to roam today. You can notice it's much further north than it was during the Pleistocene, but it's possible that we could get mammoths in that area and have them survive. So it would be interesting. I hope they succeed. I personally hope they succeed. It could be good for the climate, and it'll certainly be fascinating. It'll be like a Jurassic Park, Pleistocene Park specifically.
Right.
So... And now I'm going to go venture away from the biology and the animals of the Pleistocene, and we're going to take a look at some examples of perhaps evidence of an ancient, advanced technological civilization that spanned the globe.
And is this back to the pyramids, right?
This is loosely connected with the pyramids.
Okay.
The pyramids are one example of ancient stonework that we, so far, over the last several thousand years, haven't duplicated.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
There's three pyramids.
I need an answer to this. Yeah.
We haven't built any more. They were built in the shape of Orion's belt, the constellation.
Yeah. Very accurately,
extremely accurately,
to the degree of point, I don't know, within. And I forget the exact percentage.
Sheer size of the stones, the number of the stones. If you do the calculation on how long it would have taken people to not only cut those but move them and place them, it seems like a stretch to believe the official narrative that this was somehow done during the lifetime of a pharaoh.
Right.
This seems like it would have required advanced technology to not only move those stones, but cut them.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible. I watched too, and I forget what it was, but they would have had to been working 24/7, tens of thousands of people. It's just impossible.
You really have to,
and the synchronization.
You really have to suspend your disbelief to believe the official narrative of how the pyramids were built. Now, I don't know how they were built, but I do think it's interesting that humans, or, as one of my commenters said, maybe something else, was building these monumental structures that have stood the test of time during a period in which there were ice sheets covering most of the globe, and you're experiencing catastrophic climate change everywhere else as they melt. How they accomplished that, I do not know. So let's look at it. Here we have, where is this from? What's the first city I have listed? I believe this is from Ollantaytambo. Peru. Yep. Okay, so this is from Peru.
I wasn't going to try to say that first word.
This is an example of ancient stonework that we probably could not duplicate today. Now, what you see there, those are variously shaped stones. None of them are the same shape, yet they fit perfectly together.
Like Tetris.
It's hard for you to see from a picture, but if you were to stand in front of this wall and try to take a piece of paper and slip it between those stones, you would not be able to do it. They are that tightly fitting, that accurate. You cannot fit a piece of paper between those stones. They've been there for thousands of years, still there. No explanation so far as to how they were made, how they were placed. Let's look at some other examples. These are megalithic stones. Curiously, they have these knobs on the side of them that may give us some indication as to how they were moved. But again, if you look at the elevation that these are located,
almost like impossible.
This is on the top of a mountain peak, and it's been transported from hundreds of miles away. How they accomplished that, we don't know. But I want to point something out here. Those stones in the background, on the upper right there,
like
you see that? Yeah, those
here?
little tinier, smaller stones.
Yeah.
Notice that the stonework on the top is less advanced than the underlying stonework. That is an example of there's some civilization that found this stonework in place, couldn't reproduce it,
but tried to,
and couldn't, with inferior work.
Yeah.
This is one of the only examples I can point to on the Earth where you have a technology that did not improve with time. It got worse with time. Stoneworking. You look back in the past, you've got megalithic stoneworks all over the planet. We'll look at the next one. I think the next one's from Bolivia. We zoom in here, you can see another example here where at the bottom, you have these megalithic stones, how they moved them, how they formed those, how they fit perfectly together. And then on top, you have what looks like just a conglomeration of something you might see today.
Crazy. I mean, would one argue though that as you said, like it didn't advance, but would one argue that it didn't advance because we just found better ways to not have to move, bazillion ton freaking rocks? Like,
did we
do something? I don't know.
Let's look at
you know what I mean?
Let's look at these other examples, and it's going to start to you're going to start to see just how advanced the stuff is. Like, look at the stones on the bottom, and then look at what they've put on top. Clearly, two different techniques, totally different. So the next one now is we would not be able to reproduce these today with modern stone cutting techniques. You would need some sort of laser device to cut these. The only explanation I can come up with for these are the H blocks. What city are these located in?
Sure, it's not Bolivia.
Oh, Pumapunku, Bolivia. You're right.
Oh, okay.
Pumapunku is the name of the site here. So these on the top there, you have these intricate cuts that are razor sharp still after thousands of years. Inlaid cuts. Now,
that's crazy.
Think about how you would accomplish something like that, even if it wasn't stone. Let's say you had a piece of Play-Doh. How would you accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, not with that type of accuracy.
Well, I tried to throw a hint with the Play-Doh.
Well, I mean, like a cookie cutter type thing. right?
It's possible that what we're looking at here is an example of like a stone polymer. Like they molded these things.
Oh, I see.
Somehow they were able to melt the stone. But again, that's a technology that we do not understand.
Ceased to exist.
Again, ceased to exist, got lost.
Right.
I mean, this is incredible.
Because to be able to do that, I mean, like, again, just thinking of technology nowadays, you would need whatever you would need to do that. Like, I mean, it's impossible.
Modern 3D printer might be able to do that.
Yeah, but the type of technology that we could use to attempt to reproduce something like this.
To argue that someone did that with a chisel and a stone is absurd.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I was trying to get at, but I was doing a really poor job of trying to get to that. Yeah.
So the next one, this one is from
this one.
I believe this is Machu Picchu. Yes, Machu Picchu. So again, these are all in different areas. We've got Bolivia, Peru, Machu Picchu, showing the same similar kind of ancient stoneworking technology underneath a newer, less advanced stoneworking technology.
Right.
And Machu Picchu is a city built above the cloud level on a mountain peak. How they accomplished that, how they moved the stones up there, we don't know. And I don't think we will get an answer to that anytime soon. But it's fascinating. Now this is possibly the most advanced piece of ancient stoneworking known in existence. These are the stone boxes of Saqqara, Egypt. If you ever have a chance to go to Egypt, go to Saqqara.
Have you ever been?
I have not. It's on my list. I intend to check these out. That is a perfect right angle. These stone boxes are just unbelievable. The next image is going to show you the box on the from the outside to show you just how huge these things are.
That's insane.
Now, the other thing that's insane is the room that this box is contained in.
Right, and then the fact that they got that in there.
So small that it's not exactly clear how you would have physically moved it in there.
Yeah, right.
So
like how's that?
So there are multiple questions.
A lot of unanswered things here
remain unanswered. Yes. Again, that's for size comparison. That there's several of these boxes that are there in their own rooms. Just no sarcophagus inside. Just as an example of like, look what we could do.
Yeah. And similar to the pyramids too, because like they're, similar scenarios where, rooms were built. And again, like the tombs, they were supposed to be tombs, right? But in some of these rooms that had monstrous, structures like this inside the rooms that, if it was a pharaoh or whatever that was being buried in there, I mean, the pharaoh, the person, like would have been freaking the size of like almost like a woolly mammoth, essentially.
If you want,
so it just doesn't make sense.
If you want to blow your mind, or if your viewers want to blow their minds, check out Saqqara, Egypt. There are many unexplained stoneworking objects there. They're massive colossi.
It's insane.
I didn't bring the pictures, but the stone boxes, they are the epitome of a
near perfection.
Out of place technology. It's almost as if they were cut with a laser.
Right.
And
at a time
where, I mean, they didn't even have bronze tools. So
right. Or so we thought.
Yeah, so we thought.
Yeah.
So next, this is an example of the largest piece of stone that was ever quarried by mankind. It is called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman in Baalbek. Again, how in the world they ever intended to move this thing, I have no idea. It's estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons. We don't have a crane
it's insane.
that exists today that could lift this. But clearly, they intended to move this.
Right. Yeah.
It appears, as a matter of fact, that this stone was being quarried at the exact time when that civilization, that stonemason civilization, collapsed. Because they left it there unfinished, and it remains today in the quarry. We can see, what their techniques were. There are several other extremely large obelisks, not quite as big as this, but equally impressive.
Yeah.
That are fully formed, placed.
Yep. Perfect precision.
How did they place these obelisks? That's a good question. How did they move them? I mean, you could have tilted them up with rope or something, but moving these things.
Yeah.
That's an unanswered question. So now, lastly, as far as the ancient examples of curious stoneworking technologies, the Sphinx, that what you're looking at here, actually, let's start at the bottom one. And
this one here.
Yeah. So this is the enclosure for the Sphinx. There is water erosion that was shown by Dr. Robert Schock of Boston University. This water erosion had to have occurred over a period of thousands of years. This is extreme water erosion. We know for a fact the climate of the Giza Pyramid has not produced rainfall sufficient enough to erode anything for at least the last 4,000 to 5,000 years. Prior to that, the Sahara and northern Africa was like a jungle, and it was wet, and there was rain. It wasn't a desert. So at the time, that's an interesting...
Yeah, so it kind of helps us determine...
That's interesting context to the pyramids.
For sure.
As we see them today, they exist covered in sand in a desert.
You can never even imagine water.
That wasn't what was there at all when these were built. It was a lush oasis of tropical forests. So clearly they were getting thousands of years of rainfall into the enclosure of the Sphinx. Here's a wide look at this. You could see those water erosion lines. This is evidence that the Sphinx was in place far, far before the last 4,000 to 5,000 years. The Sphinx it's possible that the Sphinx is as old as about 23,000 years. I am more inclined to believe that it was built around that Younger Dryas period, along with the Great Pyramids, or possibly slightly before the Great Pyramids, because the Sphinx appears to have been a natural outcropping that was carved at least a couple of times. The appearance that it is today is not the way it originally looked. It was suspected to be like a large cat that was then
kind of like just
cut down to look like a pharaoh.
Altered slightly too.
And then during World War I, I believe it was, Napoleon, or maybe slightly before World War I, Napoleon's troops shot the face with some guns, so that's still there. But the water erosion, that is an example that mankind was building these magnificent stone structures.
But was it mankind?
Well, or was it?
Was it?
I mean, it's bold of me to assume.
Mark. Yeah, come on now.
So, I don't know.
Either way, it's just fascinating as hell.
Yeah, fascinating that how old these are, how long they've lasted, and the fact that we just don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
So, lastly, I want to get back to the stock market.
Yeah, here we go. Going from I
Sphinx to one for the end because
well, this is also very current.
Yeah, current events. Right as I walked in here, President Trump announced that he's going to 104% tariffs on China. The media has been in a panic lately, saying, it's a crash. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. But if you look at the graph over the last 5 years, I mean, the stock market is way, way up. If you got in during the pandemic, I mean, you're way up at this point. And we're all the way up there on the right where it says panic. that little minor correction.
So
down.
when was this? When was this screenshot? When this was because I'm looking at the Dow right now.
This screenshot would have been taken in the last like 3 days.
Okay, because as of like today, and today is April 8th, it's closed today at 37,600.
Yeah, so that might be
right
picked up in my next image. It's certainly down from when the image was taken, but
okay, yeah. So here's what this one's at.
So
38.
that's closer in time to
closer
today.
in time to it's actually real time right now.
Real time to today.
Yeah.
So this is, if you zoom out, you can see the time scale on the bottom.
Yep.
This graph goes all the way back to, say, I think that's 1952. So if you're a boomer, right, this is a graph that represents the stock market during your lifetime.
And you're right, it is 1952. It's a little cut off, but
It has gone up incredibly over the course of that period. That last little, if you zoom in all the way there at the top, that last little red candle there, that's the dip that we're talking about here.
That little tiny
red
blip.
That's the crash.
Yeah,
that's being
right.
I mean,
yeah, everyone's panicking, and thank you for everybody for selling your stocks because I'm buying, I'm buying it all up. So
I'm
at
planning
a great
buy
discount,
the dip as well.
Yeah, so we're not financial advisors. Don't sue me. Don't sue Mark.
This isn't financial advice, but I will say that a lesson I learned from the COVID crash was that buy low, sell high.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the media is saying, "Oh, the market's crashing,"
great time to buy
something.
Yeah.
Save the market, buy something, ride the wave up.
Yep.
Because trust me, you're going to make more money if you buy it when the television media is in a panic
100%.
than if you buy it when it's at the peak.
Yeah.
So that, I'm not a financial advisor, but I did get into the stock market during COVID. Best decision I ever made. That was probably the best time to get in the last 10 years. The second best time is probably right now.
Yeah. And I think there's never really a bad time, obviously.
No,
and the other crazy thing too, and I forget, I wish I saved it. And maybe I did somewhere. I'll have to look. But I actually, again, I'm very interested in the stock market and all this too. And I've been investing probably for the last about 18 years or so myself. And the little bit that I do know, somebody's ringing the doorbell. I wonder who's here. That's all right. They can't come in because we're busy. But my point was, I saw this video, and I forget who the hell it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a pretty credible source. But basically, he explains these crashes that everybody panics about, yada yada yada, right? They happen, I'll say somewhat frequent, or over the course of, we'll say, decades, right? And every single time that this has happened in the history, let me say again, the whole history of the stock market. Usually within 6 months, with the exception of one major crash, and I forget which one it was. It was like, I don't know, probably like 40, maybe 50, maybe even longer ago, years ago. But every single time that there was a major crash that happened like this, within 6 months, the stock market rebounded back to
higher than it was before it crashed.
At least back to even, but actually usually, and then some.
That's exactly what happened during the COVID crash.
Yeah.
If you looked at that as a buying opportunity and you got in, you probably doubled, maybe even tripled your money at this point.
Oh yeah, 100%. I have.
Yeah. So the next image I have, if there is a financial concern with the economy, you should be pointing to this. The US dollar is down over 90% in the past 5 years if you price it in something else. So for example, here we've priced it in Bitcoin. So if you wanted to trade your US dollars in for Bitcoin 5 years ago, you would have gotten a lot more Bitcoin than you get today.
It's a little scary.
Yeah, if there is a concern, it should be this. So what this means is if you were sitting with, say, $1 million in US dollars in your bank account, let's not even say $1 million. Let's say $100. Let's say you're saving up. You got $100 in your bank account. You put it in there 5 years ago. What would that be worth today? It would be worth like $10.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
The buying power of it diminished so greatly.
Yeah, most people don't realize this.
5 years that your $100 5 years ago can now only purchase about $10 worth of goods as they were priced 5 years ago. For example, Bitcoin. Now, Max Kaiser, I believe his name is. Forgive me if I got that wrong.
I think he got it right.
He has converted 100% to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So he doesn't deal and he doesn't buy things in US dollars. There's Visa, there's MasterCard that they can debit your Bitcoin account now, which he's doing this. He's just buying stuff with Bitcoin, living on Bitcoin. That's all he does. His experience is that every single year that he goes to pay his bills,
I think I've seen this. Yeah.
Buy whatever.
Yeah, I've seen this video.
Every year it goes down. And that video is what convinced me to really take a hard look at Bitcoin.
Sure.
I thought, it's not like real thing, like it's cryptocurrency. But now that I understand it, and I understand that there is a finite supply of Bitcoin that will never increase, Bitcoin is a solid store of value, as you can see over the last 5 years. Yeah. And it goes in 5-year cycles, by the way. So I think it's every 4 to 5 years, there's some sort of like halvening. I'm not a crypto expert. I'm not.
Yeah, neither am I.
Push crypto. Yeah. But I'm learning about it because I am tired of seeing the value of my money go down.
Right.
I'm trying to make it.
Yeah, do something about it.
I'm trying to have kids. I want a future. The goal is to protect as much value as I can in what little money I'm making here with the forecasts and the weather. My idea now is probably I'm going to be investing in Bitcoin and other stocks. I think it's a really, really, really bad idea to sit on a mountain of cash.
And and definitely keeping it in a regular bank account. Like just, you're earning like I don't even know what it is. It's just such a minimal percent. It's a joke. It's not even worth talking about.
Yeah. I mean, 5 years from now, your money in the bank is going to continue to follow this trend. Your buying power will be...
Yeah, your cash, your money's going to be dumbed down to next to nothing by the time you go to actually need to use it.
Like if you had $100 in the bank 5 years ago, today it would have a buying power of about $10. 5 years from now, it'll have the buying power of about $1.
Yeah. It's crazy at the rate that's happening.
Well,
it's scary.
The vast majority of U.S. dollars that are in existence were printed in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. But it's scary. I don't think a lot of people even realize, or they don't believe it. They just think that it's not.
Well, that's why I'm talking about this. I feel like the media is pushing a narrative about the tariffs are bad. They're going to crash the economy. I'm showing you the economy is we're up 90% over the last year. This is a little 10% correction. I don't see that as a problem. I think that's healthy. I think if you just let the market go up, you're going to get a huge bubble and then you get a real crash.
Right. Right.
The
other theory. Did you hear the other theory? And is that with the tariffs, what it essentially is going to do is it caused, by implementing these tariffs, it caused this, what everyone's panicking about, this big crash. It's really not that big of a crash, at least not in my opinion. But the theory, I guess, one of the theories behind it is, with the tariffs, it's going to cause this crash. It's going to lower the stock market, and it's going to force the Fed to lower the interest rate. And then what's going to happen then? I guess apparently the U.S. and I don't know if this is 100% true because I haven't done my research on this. I just saw it a day or two ago. But it's going to force the Fed to lower the interest rate, and supposedly the U.S. were up for to renegotiate a major loan of it could be like trillions of dollars. And when the Fed lowers the interest rate, now the U.S. is up for this renegotiation of this huge chunk of debt. Well, now guess what? The rate has already been lowered. That now we have more negotiating power to to save on the interest of this loan.
I think the
and
idea
lowering the debt. That's.
I think the idea is that President Trump wants the federal government to refinance its debt at a lower interest rate.
Right. Yeah. Essentially, and what that's going to do is it's supposed to save the couple $1 trillion that they're looking to save, just based on.
I
theory.
believe that he's on the right track here. I am against the cheap junk from China model that we've been on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many flat screen TVs does somebody need before they decide that, I'd rather just, get quality food cheap at the grocery store? That's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't eat a flat screen TV.
You can't?
No. So
we can try after. We got a couple here. I'll give you one to go.
I feel like eventually the market will surge. It always does. As you said, it always turns around. And sometimes it only takes 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you follow that adage, buy low, sell high, people should be looking at right now as, well, it's not a crash. Actually, stocks are just on sale today.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I'm looking at it.
And you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
It is. If you hold that stock for 10 years, you're going to look back and say, wow, I got a deal.
Yep.
So
that's
correct. And I'm not even telling people what to buy. Like, you buy whatever you want.
Yeah, do your own research, right? Yeah. But that's fundamentally, you are correct. Yeah.
I think,
but we're not financial advisors.
Not a financial advisor.
But
I was in the stock market game from 8th grade onward. So I did get some experience and some education at Valley West in stocks, whereas most people didn't. If you weren't in the stock market game, you didn't get that exposure. Yeah. So while I didn't have real money in the market when I was doing that, it's called the stock market game, but essentially it was a club where we just learned how to invest.
I did something like similar in 7th grade, like in a math class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Actually, I picked Apple, and dude, if I actually would have I don't even remember like I did good with the project or the assignment, whatever it was, right? I chose Apple. I don't even remember. I had to pick a couple stocks, and it was just it was fictional, right? But we followed the real market. And, at the time I understood it to a degree. I was in 7th grade, but I didn't actually, we weren't actually investing, of course. Right. But man, had I freaking put money, whatever it was, even if it was just $1,000 back in, can you imagine?
Have an interesting story
can you imagine
regarding this? Yeah.
And again,
that was my experience.
That was in 2000, 2001.
Around that same time, I think it was about around that same time, early 2000s, right around 2000, I picked Intel. The reason was I could see that all the
might have been one of mine too.
All the computers were starting to use Intel chips, which up to that point they weren't standardized across the industry.
Yeah,
and they started to all move towards Intel, and so I thought, wow, that sounds like it's destined to go up,
right?
So I picked that. I told my parents about it, and they actually invested in it. Did they? If that were the only thing they invested, if they had only taken my advice and not also invested other money in Boston market, they likely would be millionaires today.
Yeah, probably like
But unfortunately, the Boston market investment went bankrupt. The Intel investment went to the moon. So ultimately, it was a wash.
Wow.
So, But had they taken,
or just put more, or just
taken out a $5,000 loan in the year 2000 and put it all in Intel, you'd be a millionaire today.
Yeah. Oh, 10 times over.
Easily.
Yeah.
So
it's funny when I'm not even sure why I picked Apple. I think this might be the reason, but in school at that time, we had the school had just recently, I think, got Mac computers in all the classrooms, and they were the ones the big, the big blocky ones that had they had the color backs. Do you remember them? They had all different color backs to them.
I do.
And every classroom had 10 of them or something. And so at that time, I think a 7th grade kid, I'm looking around I thought it was definitely cool. You know what I mean? And Macs were starting to become cool. I think around that time, and I think I might obviously we looked at some data, but I think I probably just made my decision based on it being cool. But you know what? As a 7th grade kid, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it, that is actually part of picking a stock, like picking a product that you could see is on the way up if you believe in it. And if you believe in it, it has good fundamentals, et cetera. Obviously, at 7th grade, I didn't know the fundamentals like of the actual company because I'm 7th grade. But now I know enough that I could look at,
I think that in 7th, 8th grade when we were doing that stock market,
but we were right.
Club thing,
isn't that crazy?
That the way you were picking stocks then, that's the way you do it.
It actually is.
You want to look for a company that has a product that you're noticing.
Correct. Like that you believe in.
Yeah. You don't
that you actually maybe use, which
my worst investments ever have been in companies that I really didn't know much about.
Yeah, or you don't own the product.
Yeah, and I haven't seen their product and just somebody said, "Oh, this is a good investment. Take a flyer on it."
Yep.
Those always turn out to be the worst ones. If you just pick a company that's been around for a while, you expect it to be around for a while, and you use their product, buy their stock. You'll probably end up making money.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I think we've had a productive discussion.
Yeah, this was a good one, man. We covered a lot, dude. This was a wide range, man. We went, from we might have to put the scarf back on before we end. It was all over, but I mean in a good way. I mean it was I think it was structured enough that we're not, wasn't I think people can follow it. But
shout out to Punxsutawney Phil for the accurate winter forecast this year.
Yeah.
I have talked some trash on that rodent in years past.
Yeah, we all have,
he deserves some kudos this year.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thank you, Bill.
Until next time, man. This was fun. All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully your audience is intrigued enough to seek out some more information on some of the topics I discussed. Saqqara, Egypt. I highly recommend you look into the mysteries that can be found there.
Really cool stuff. All right. Mark Margavage, this is the On the Stacks podcast in the Loop Internet Studio. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/OnTheStacks podcast or search the hashtag OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.